Storms can happen anywhere where you live in the country, and if you have concerns about damage to your trees or your property, what do you do? We're here to answer those questions. For us is Megan Kacenski, Arborist Representative from Bartlett Tree Experts. Megan, thanks for joining us. How do storms impact trees and shrubs on our landscape?
Storms can cause a lot of damage to trees and shrubs in our landscapes, and that's a result of heavy precipitation, high winds, and directional wind shifts that trees aren't used to facing. I think about tree limbs kind of like my arms, so when you have a lot of weight on the end, that force is really going to start to bring those limbs down, and that's where we tend to see a lot of damage as well.
So tell us, which trees are more likely to fail during a storm?
Trees that have pre-existing defects, cracks, decay, anything that has dead, damaged, or broken limbs already. Dead trees can also fall, and also trees that have pre-existing health concerns, any sort of rot, decay, cankers, mushrooms. Those are things to look out for.
And how do we make our landscapes more resilient to storms?
Definitely talk to an arborist. I think it's really important to have an arborist that knows your landscape really well, that you can call before a storm. Take a look around and see what the landscape looks like before a storm, and then come back after a storm. A lot of the things that we look for are going to be really subtle, right? Shifts in root plates, leaning trees, and that's something that an arborist that knows the property really well will be able to see. I think landscapes that are the most resilient tend to have a lot of variety. They have trees that grow in groups. Standalone trees are going to see a lot more wind shifting and damage because they stand alone.
So tell us, what are the benefits of having tree work done before a storm comes along?
So we want to identify any sort of weaknesses that can fail prior to a storm coming through. So cabling and bracing trees that have codominant union points or decay in them is really important. Identifying trees that have any sort of pre-existing health concerns with root rot or damage, and just overall reducing the risk of the property.
And what do Bartlett Tree Experts look for in a hazard inspection?
We look for cracks, decay in trees, dead branches, dead trees, saturated soils where a lot of water may be holding and increasing the risk of failure from the root plate.
And after a storm, what are the signs of a damaged tree?
Most of the time it's pretty obvious, right? We're going to see a tree that's completely failed or large branches that have fallen onto the landscape, some of which may have caused property damage. In other cases, it may be a lot more subtle. High cracks in the canopy, hangers in the tree, dead broken limbs that haven't come down yet. And so that's why it's really important to have an arborist that knows the landscape well, that can see those slight changes. A lot of the times we'll see a tree that's slightly leaning, and that shifting in the root plate, that's hard to detect.
And if you have pre-existing conditions on your property, what effect can they have in extreme weather conditions?
Absolutely. It's really important that we understand the history of the property so we can properly assess the trees. Construction damage plays a huge role in a tree's health. Root cutting, root damage, any sort of decay that's in the trunk can cause damage later on to the trees. Heavy equipment can compact soils and cause a lot of damage as well. It's also important to know if there's been any extensive flooding, any big landscape changes, and also if you've had a lot of trees removed or your neighbor has had a lot of trees removed, that can change the wind that's facing the trees that they're used to growing in.
So if you have concerns about an upcoming storm or you have damage to your trees already on your property, what should you do?
They should call a certified arborist. Call Bartlett.
Megan, as always, thank you.